Deer stories. I've got a bunch of them in Vermont. I got a bunch of deer stories when I was a kid. I got a bunch of them from Maine, and I got a bunch from Ontario, even Quebec. I heard somebody saying not too long ago that you should never ride around and look for a deer track. So I want to talk to you folks a little bit about that. When you ride around and look for a deer track first thing in the morning, if you're not familiar with the roads, you're going to get familiar if that's where you come out. Especially if you have a chase vehicle. See, when I grew up, I always had a chase vehicle looking for me because I'd come out 10 miles down the road, maybe 20, maybe a mile. I've shot some deer where I took a track from the road and I shot the deer a couple hundred yards off the road. But it didn't always turn out that way, so you need a chase vehicle. So I want to talk to you about riding around a little bit. Some of the biggest bucks I've ever shot was from riding around looking at deer tracks. If you're lucky enough, you can pick the buck you want to shoot by riding around. That's how come my average was so high for hunting Maine for 7 years. I don't know if you read the White Book, but 7 years I had an average weight of my deer was 239. So how did that happen? Because I rode around and picked the buck track that I wanted to go shoot. And I told this story before, Parlin Pond Road, and I mentioned it to the last seminar we did. I drove that morning, first of the season, brand new snow. I found 12 buck tracks from the main road to almost where they call the three slides. And it was 12 bucks across the road, but I wasn't happy with any of them. There was a couple that I was really interested in, but not quite. And what I would do in case I wanted to come back and follow that deer, I'd walk in the woods on his track and then I'd walk backwards out. And that looked like there was two guys going in. Then I'd drive out. So you gotta, because somebody's apt to take the track after you leave it. But then I got above three slides a little bit, not quite, and I found this buck track crossing the road. And I said to the guy riding with me, I'm going to follow that in the woods a little bit and I'll be right back. I followed it in the woods and I came back within 10 minutes. I said to him, if you don't see me before 4 o'clock, I want you to fire a signal shot this afternoon at 4 o'clock if you don't see me back. Because I knew it was going to be a while. That buck weighed 268. That's because I passed all those buck tracks up. And that's how I got such a high average doing that. I'm going to give you another, for instance. I was in Quebec hunting, a brand new place, never been there before. I drove the road for 3 days. Never got out of the rig except for looking at a track crossing the road. At the end of 3 days, I found this great big buck track. And I said, I'm coming here tomorrow morning. And I'm telling the boys about it. Boy, there's a really big buck up there. So after 3 days, I went back to where I saw that track on the third day. I shot that buck at 10 o'clock and he weighed 270. That's how you shoot big bucks if you want to get them, if you're looking for them. Because you can't catch a big fish in a hole if there ain't one in there. So you got to pick the right fishing hole. Guys got any questions about that? Another thing you got to learn too is when you look at the track, is it a young buck or an old buck? You can tell that by looking at the deer track itself. You can pretty much age a deer by looking at his track if you can follow it a little bit. Because what happens as the deer gets older, his track changes quite a bit. Like us old guys, we become flat-footed. A deer comes flat-footed if they get old enough. Even most of them will get flat-footed. Deer claws will stick out a little further. And when they get some weight, they'll spread a little bit more. How am I doing, you guys? Am I doing all right?
I think one of the reasons that driving around like he's talking about, what's nice about it is you can cover so much more area than if you're parking your truck and going and looking in a spot. You know, you're kind of limited. So what's nice about what he's doing is you'll get a good survey on what your herd is around what the area you're hunting. And what's nice, like he was saying, he would literally just drive and find the biggest buck in, a 50-mile block. And then when the snow came, he'd know where to go to find that buck. But the problem is if you don't do your driving, then and you're only walking in the woods, you might never stumble across that spot. So you can cover a lot more area is the benefit to it.
Yeah.
But walking is good too. You know, both are good to do, but I think especially if it's a new area. I was just talking to a kid this morning, and he's going to Maine for the first time. You know, he's never been there. You should spend a couple days driving around, get a feel for it, learn the roads, just figure everything out and see some tracks and just get an idea where some of your bigger deer are, and it'll lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, don't be afraid to get off the main road too, because a lot of the people that are going up to Maine are driving the Holub Road, or they're driving the Tim Pond Road, and no one gets off on those little side roads. You got to take each one of those little side roads, do your locating. You could, like Timmy said, you could locate them from the woods, but you're on foot and you can only cover a little bit of area. But when you're driving around, and don't be afraid to just drive around and do that. I think the first time I went out to Ontario with these guys, I talked with Shane, and I was asking, you know, I got there like the second or third week. And so I said, hey, you guys seen anything? And he said, Lanny hasn't even got out of the truck. He's been here 2 weeks. And I, geez, that's pretty impressive, because when that snow came, all of a sudden it was like right on. He knew exactly where the deer were, but he hadn't been hunting, you know, physically hunting, walking around in the woods, but he had been hunting with his rig. That's the difference. That takes a lot of stamina, and that takes a lot of mental fortitude right there.
Plus, I was scouting for the other people too. So I was putting people in places that I scouted out. It wasn't just for me. Like his dad never shot a 200-pound buck. We had a spot all picked out for him. But that's how everybody gets deer. Like I take people to Maine and I can tell them, if you want to sit here for a day or two, you have to shoot a 200-pound buck. I've done that with quite a few people that I've taken to Maine. I can do that with you if you got the deer there to hunt. But you have to have deer there. There's some places that are just over hunted in Maine, so you got to get away from those.
I think I would argue that's if you want a 200+ pound buck, I would almost argue that's just locating it, just finding that deer and where he is probably going to be the hardest part of it.
For sure.
I mean, there's a lot of woods in Maine that doesn't have 200-pound bucks, so I think there was a day when they were more plentiful, but nowadays you got to work to locate those things. So if that's what you're after, you're gonna have to put that time in just to find out where they are, and then your hunt can start from there.
Yeah, even this year, Lanny, we had, what, almost 2 weeks of driving around?
Yeah, we found a lot of bucks. Him and I did a lot of scouting. Every day we'd find bucks, but nothing we wanted to shoot. They were anywhere from 150 to 170-pound deer, and the racks are like this. We finally found what we was looking for, though.
And don't be afraid to drive, like I said. I mean,
Yeah, we found a really big buck last year.
you know,
One of the only problems with that finding that deer, nobody knew that deer was there, but we found it. And that deer's gonna go 250, 300, and he's got a nice big rack on him. The problem is, the loggers seen it this summer. Uh-oh, the secret's out. But there's some other good ones in that area too, so. Say you got a mountain range that goes for 5 or 6 miles, 10 miles that way. You know, if you want to go up there and hunt high, you're going to find a big buck up there eventually. There's no question about that. But it's just easier to get out of your truck and get on a buck track and go shoot it. See, it was easy for me years ago when I was younger. I'd get out of the truck. A lot of those deer I'd track maybe an hour, a half hour, 5 hours, and I'd come back and we'd drag the deer out. But now that I'm over the hill and I've got a better shape than I used to have, when I stand up and turn sideways, you understand what I'm saying about the shape? So that day's all done for me, so I have to poke along in the woods now. So I'll be 80 this year, so I'm still getting out there. I called him on the phone this year, asked him where he was. I don't know where I was. I'm standing on an old skid road that went in there, I don't know how far. And I said to him, sounds like you're really close.
yeah.
He was like 100 yards, we're 100 yards from each other. I got dropped off about 5 miles that way, and he was that way quite a ways. And we bumped into each other, and he looked at me and he goes, boy, you're in here a long ways, ain't you? I'm thinking, yeah, it's a long ways back, isn't it? But we found some nice deer in there.
I didn't have to carry his gun back. He could tote it himself.
Yeah, we found some really nice bucks. He came along. Why I called him on the walkie-talkie is I found a really good one right there. It wasn't the big one, but it was another good big buck. And he stuck his head in to feed, and you can see this thing, you know, big old rack on it. I started twirling my gun the best I could, but it didn't twirl good. Go ahead. Timmy, you want to say anything?
No, I mean, I think that
I interrupted you guys.
covers locating. I think now, you know, once you find that track, you know, what's next? And I guess I'll give my little, you know, we're all sort of products of Lanny and the Benoits and their videos, and I mean, I didn't figure any of this stuff out. I was just watch their stuff, but I think we all kind of figure out our own way and we put our own little spin on it, but there's definitely some of those moments where you figure it out, you figure out certain things that you can start being more consistent. And I'm just going to give you the one for me. I followed a lot of bucks, you know, I shot my share in the beginning, but then I followed a lot that I didn't get. But one thing that I did learn to do was, in the morning when I find a buck track, if, let's just say he came through sometime through the night and I felt like it was fresh enough that I could, you know, catch this buck. I used to, in the beginning, I'd spend a lot of time like slowly trying to get caught up to him because I felt like I was hunting. So I do like more of a still hunting kind of pace, and that doesn't work. And the problem is if that buck comes through at 2 a.m. and he's out there 5 miles somewhere, you can't go at that pace and probably get caught up with that buck. So what I sort of figured out was, now what I do is when I find that in the morning, if that track is a few hours old, I walk way faster through the morning to just go get caught up to him. Because the problem is, if you guys are 2 miles apart from each other all day, you're not going to kill the deer. So you got to go get close to the deer. So what I just started doing is, like I said, I would just almost walk as hard as I could in the morning to hopefully be caught up to him by, most of the time it's what, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock? Yeah. If it's a track you're taking, you know it's made through the night, 10 or 11 o'clock, but go get that out of the way. And the worst case is you're going to jump the buck. You're going too fast and you jump him, okay? That does stink a little bit, but that buck is still killable. If you just hang out for a minute, let him relax. It all depends on his mood. You know, he could have just fed and just laid down. He's got a belly full and he just wants to lay down and chew his cud. If you leave that buck alone for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, that buck is just going to go lay back down. But my point is, just get caught up to him. Sacrifice maybe jumping him to at least be caught up to him, because that's the only way you're going to kill him. And once I started doing that, that was a game changer. I definitely got a lot more consistent. But like I said, the only bad part about it is you do run the risk of jumping the buck, but don't be afraid of that, because at least you're in the game. If you're 3 miles behind him all day, you're not in the game and it's not going to happen. So just get caught up with the deer. And like I said, that changed things for me, and to this day, I still do that. And I mean, I jump my share of them, but there's a lot of them I get up tight to him and he doesn't even know I'm there. I can just read in his track that it's super fresh or whatever it is, and I'm right there behind the deer. But get behind the deer, get close to him.
Yeah,
so.
you got to definitely get caught up. The other thing that stemmed a little thought in my head when you were saying that, don't be afraid to take an old track either, because as we go along, you know, years and years and years, you can see that the tracks that are crossing the roads are diminishing, the big tracks. So if you actually find one that is a big track and it's something that you're really interested in, it could be worth you going on that 2 or 3 day old track and just going heading up the mountain. He could be sitting up there just sleeping for 2 or 3 days.
Could be up there feeding, taking a break.
Yeah, all of a sudden you come along his brand new fresh track. Now you're in the game.
I've shot bucks that are 3 days old tracks. The biggest buck that was shot in the state of Maine in 1971, I shot that deer and that track was a day old. I picked it up from where my dad left it off the day before. I caught him at noon and shot him up on top of the mountain. He went up there and started feeding, and lay down over here and laid down over there. He laid down one final time.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, just locating a buck of the, you know, like these guys are talking about, those big ones that we all kind of want. When you find that, like, if you think you're going to go down the road and find another one, like, it might happen, but I got to tell you, most of the time nowadays, that's not going to happen. So when you find it, like, you know, even if it is a 2-day-old track, that happened to me 2 seasons ago. I looked all year, never tracked a buck because I was looking for a big one, and I finally found him, and it was 2 days old. My cameraman, I did have a cameraman that day, and he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to follow it," and we did. And I followed that buck for probably a mile, 2-day-old track, and he had gone straight and gone up on that mountain, did his thing for 2 days, and here was his track, brand new, fresh, coming right back down through. Same buck. I mean, he was the only big one like that in that area, but just being on his track sometime, he might go do a big swing up there that takes him a day to do, and there's his track fresh, but at least you're in his area, you know? I guess my point is when you locate those things, like, you really got to try to stay on them, because there was a day back in the day you could find a different one down the road, but that's hard to do nowadays in Maine. So
Yeah, big bucks are really hard to find where I've been hunting. Find a lot of 2.5, year and a half, 2.5-year-old bucks, and a few 3.5. But we're not really looking for a 3.5-year-old deer. We're looking for 4.5 and up. That's your magic number, 4.5 and up. If you hunt out west, their horns grow like this every year. Where you guys all hunt in Maine, this is how their horns grow. They go real slow because they don't have the feet. You know, the real mountain deer, the antlers don't bloom out like they do out west. Like Ontario, the majority of the bucks shot out there were 3.5 years old, and they had nice racks on them, and they were healthy deer. 3.5-year-old buck in Maine or New Hampshire or even Vermont, they're all right, but some of them are good, but most of them need a couple more years. The best year for age-wise is between 6 and 10 or 11. I shot some 10-year-old bucks that had nice, great big racks, and they weighed 240 and they were healthy, and so don't worry that some of them didn't taste so good, but they weren't bad. You know? I've shot some that were pretty rank. The neighbor got some deer meat.
I've got a question right now.
So when you're tracking and you do bump a buck, like, how do you treat that? Are you reading what the buck's doing, if it's hightailing or just walking away? What do you do after?
Well, if you bump a buck, they're all a little different.
Yeah.
Now, Timmy mentioned about laying down. He's laying down first thing in the morning. If he fed a lot and you jump him up, he might be just laying there chewing his cud. So what's going to happen? You jump him up, and he'll run maybe a couple hundred yards, and he's going to stop and look back. And if you don't go up there and you wait a little bit, he'll lay back down again because he wants to chew his cud, digest his food. But now if he hasn't fed much and he's on wanting to go run around, then he may take off on you. You may jump him up and he may run for half a mile or a quarter of a mile and just line drive. Now he's going away from you. So you got to figure out what buck you got.
Yeah, before you even jump him up, you should know what he's doing. Is he with a doe? Is this track old?
Yeah.
You know, those factors factor into what you do after a lot more. So if he's with a doe and you split him up, you just stay right there.
Yeah, he's going to come back looking for the doe. But on the other hand now, if you have a buck that's 10 years old or 11 years old, he may have a great rack. You jump him up. Most of those bucks won't run very far because they're older deer. They don't like running anymore, not like the young ones. The easiest bucks I've shot are the older ones because they didn't run very far. So let's say that he's in a thicket and you can't see him, and there's a clear cut on the back side of a thicket, right over there. He's in here in the little spruces. He's going to hear you, and he's going to jump out of there, and he's going to run across the cut, and he's going to stand over there and look back. So you stay in the spruces. Don't just walk out in the open. You pick spots where you can see around the tree or between the limbs. Don't walk out in the open, but stay inside. Because if you have a background, he won't see you in there. The minute you pop out, you'll see him run. If you stay in them spruces, like I just said, now you can pick out a little spot to shoot out of there and shoot the deer. A lot of people make that mistake. It's all them little mistakes that cost you a deer. So.
And these guys answered like that scenario, but let's just say it's a buck you've been following, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you've jumped him 3 times. Okay, that's a different deal, right? So that buck is up, knows what's going on, keeps getting jumped. He knows something's after him. Those bucks, what I do, I will actually pick my pace up a little bit, and a lot of looking. That's another thing. If, like all of us, any good buck tracker, they're not looking at the ground. You gotta have your head on a swivel to see these deer. But what I do when I'm getting to those multiple times of jumping him, I come on to him a little bit quicker to give him less time to think and decide what I'm gonna do and all that. And again, trying to get him to make a mistake. So he might jump out of my view 3 times in a row, but time number 5, he stands there just 3 seconds too long. You see what I mean? So that buck right there is a different deal because he knows something's up. He knows something's after him. What are you going to do? You're not going to slow poke on him. That buck, you give him too much time, you're never going to see him. So those bucks, and it sort of applies the same way like on crunchy snow. So if you got crunchy snow, right, that deer hears you. These guys have shot a ton of bucks on crunchy snow. How do you do that? And that's what you do. You pick your pace up, cut his time to think when you're coming on to him, and just force him into a mistake. They're animals. I used to hold bucks on this pedestal like they were like, I was hunting a person and they could think like we do, and they are smart. I'm going to give them credit because they are. They can survive, but they are an animal, and they'll make a mistake. So now, like I said, whenever I get in that situation where like, okay, we're going to have to grind this out for 5 rounds, yeah, those ones I just keep pressure on him, keep your head up, and just force him into a mistake.
Yeah, to tack on to that as well, if you're in an area that has a lot of coyotes, I found that those guys run a lot, and then they'll go into water and do the whole thing, jumping off to the side. Those bucks are pretty hard to kill, but that's when I'm going to pick up my pace a lot more and not sneak along, even if the snow's good. If there are a lot of coyotes in there, I'm going faster.
He just mentioned, I just want to touch on this, of water, because you're in Maine, there's streams and rivers and all that stuff. That's one thing I have picked up on. I've killed 2 of them that it was sort of what I just described. Jumped a couple times, these bucks were cranked. They knew that something's after them, right? I killed 2 of them right after they crossed water. I think that those bucks have been getting rid of coyotes and predators forever because predators go off a scent. So a buck, when he crosses a stream from me to you wide, that predator loses his scent. I've noticed some of these bucks, when they go across water, they are so used to that feeling that they almost forget about me. They cross water and they think, okay, good, got that taken care of. And I've had 2 big ones. One of them's the biggest buck I ever killed in Maine. It was 235 pounds. And I killed that buck within 100 yards of crossing that stream. And he knew I was on him. I jumped him earlier, and he knew I was on him. But he crossed that stream, and it was like he thought that, okay, good, got all set. And he just totally relaxed on me, And that's some of the persistent side of it. You jump him a couple times, and you think like, I'm never going to get this thing. But just staying at it, just the way that situation ended up working out, it was just perfect, Just staying in the game, but
It's got to be big water. It can't be
just bigger water.
Little trickle.
Yeah, not a stream, but yeah.
And you can see that the demeanor of their tracks automatically changes once they get on the other side of that big water. And that's when, okay, now you can slow down and start looking a lot more.
It's almost like hitting a reset button.
Yeah.
When they cross like that, it's almost like you get to start all over again.
I've had a bunch of them cross here, go down 300-400 yards, cross back again.
Yep.
I've had a lot of them go in here and go that way, go back upstream, and then come out. I've had them play all kinds of little tricks on me, but guess what? I've never lost one yet. I've never lost any of their tracks. You just got to stay persistent and look.
Some of them will get into a stream, not a real, not talking a river, but a stream. They'll jump down in it, and there's no track out the other side. They'll just go up or down. They'll just stay right in it and go 100 yards, however far, and then hop out.
They go this way, and they turn around, come up the stream that way.
And the way I do that is, again, most of the time when they do that, they're not swimming. So it's not too deep where they have to swim. They can actually walk in it. But I just look at the rocks in the stream, and I'm obviously tracking. There's going to be snow on there, and I look for the splash marks where they splash some water on top of one of those rocks, and that's how I know which direction he did. And then I just hop right back out, go right up the edge of it, and find his track.
Keep in mind, too, some bucks get tamer as you're tracking them. Some get more wild. So it depends on which buck you got. The more wild one, you might as well go back to your rig. But if he's calming down, you jump him out quicker and quicker, you're going to shoot that deer. There's some of them that do that. I've had them do that to me. They get a little tamed up, but they're not all like that. Best ones are when they got a doe with them.
Yeah, that's the best scenario you can be in right there. A big buck with a doe. He's so focused on her that it's almost not fair, but...
No, it's not fair.
It's really not. And sometimes, like Glenn was saying, I haven't done this. I did it 3 years ago in Maine. I jumped a buck and a doe, and I knew to do this, but I got right in their V. I just walked up in their V 20 yards and stood right there, and he came down through. He was coming back looking for her, but he wasn't one that I wanted. But my brother has killed 2 bucks doing that. Nice big bucks, jump them with the doe goes out there, the buck goes out there, he just walks right up in there and just find a tree and stand, just wait. And within usually 5 minutes or so, they'll be coming right back through.
Yeah, they come back quick.
Yeah. But they'll make a lot of mistakes when they're with does, you know. He's just so focused on her. You can get away with a lot more. You'll feel like you're a really good buck tracker. For sure.
So when you said find a tree, so you're waiting for that buck to come back.
Just to stand next to.
Stand in front of the tree or behind?
No, I'm trying to hide. Yeah, because I know they went out like this right here. And I've seen it a few times. The stories my brother told me about the 2 he killed, they go out like this right here, the buck's over here, they just do a half moon coming back. Because he knows she went out like this, and he's out like that. So it's just natural for him to kind of cut right across. So it's just coming across right here. So I just try to blend in right there. And when he does come through, if it's close, just not let him see me, that's all. But that works good. That works really, really good. Like I said, one of the best situations you can be in is him with a doe. They can get pretty tough to kill by themselves sometimes, depending on what mood they're in, but...
I was driving down the road one day, and this buck was in such the rut so bad that he was from here. This guy with a red shirt on, standing there this way. I'm driving by like this, and his nose up, and his eyeballs are curled backwards, and his nostrils are flared. And he was going to fight with a Suburban, I think. I mean, I never see a buck that bad in the rut. So I parked up the road a little bit, and I said, somebody go kill that buck. Wait till you put him out of his misery. A nice little 10-pointer. Well, I say little, he was over 200, but that buck, he didn't want to go nowhere. There was a doe right there. He was protecting his doe or something. That was the worst case I've seen.
And I was just saying, you know, it depends on their mood, right? And I was talking to these guys this morning there, and the nightmare deer to get on is the big buck that's been rested up, and he's going to look for that next group of does. And in Maine, those groups are spread out. So you get in the big woods, and it might be 5 miles between doe groups. So in the middle of the rut, there's tracks that you're going to take. You'll take it, I mean, it's fresh, and you take it first thing in the morning. At the end of the day, at dark, he'll be further away from you than when you started. It's crazy. But that's just that mood of that buck. He's rested. That's what he's up to that day. But then you'll find another buck that has done that for 3 days, and now he's going up on that mountain to lay down. That's a completely different deer to follow.
Let's talk about the racks for a minute. Want to do that?
Yeah, let's switch it up. Go ahead.
How do you tell what kind of rack he's got? So we'll let these guys talk a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit. So, say he's got a rack this wide. Well, let's say this wide. He can still go through the trees, like even this tree that's that wide. And what you look for, the biggest thing you look for if you're in a hurry, if he's going to go this way, and 1 foot steps out like that when he goes through there, because he's turning his head to go through those 2 trees. They always put 1 foot out. If he's going that way, he'll put a foot out over here. It goes that way. That tells you he's got a decent rack.
They'll do the same thing sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time, but every now and again you'll come across a log or a tree that came down that has about that high off the ground. Those big tall rack bucks, same thing. They'll walk up to that, and what it is, they can't just drop their head down and dip under that thing because they'll just fall right flat on their face forward. You'll see they'll take 1 foot, and you'll just see 1 print right out to the side, and all that is him putting this out here, getting his rack under, and then off he goes again. So anytime you ever see just going between trees or dipping under something, you catch 1 print out off to the side. I've never seen that not be a giant rack buck. It's like all the big ones do that right there. It's like shoot him on sight unseen. Who cares what he weighs? That's a big one. It's a big rack buck.
I've tracked one last year that every time he went under something like that, he would get down on his knees.
Yeah.
So that was like, I never got that deer, but that was Huge rack, guaranteed.
And what's cool when they do that, that shows you height, because height's hard to tell. Width is easy. Width is, there's 2 trees right here, I'm following him, and there's 2 trees right there, and they're this wide, and he didn't walk through them, he walked around it. Well, you know he's wider than that. That's easy, that's a piece of cake. But don't let that fool you. One of the biggest score, the highest scoring buck I ever killed in Maine, it was 150 inches, 10-pointer, and that buck was only this wide. I thought all day, the whole time I was following him, I kept telling, my father was with me, kept telling him this is a scrub rack buck. Had no idea. I shot that buck and he had tines like this all the way down through, but there was no way I could tell the height on it. I could tell his width because of what he was walking through, but not the height. So that's, whenever you see that, that's showing you height. Like I said, width is easy to kind of tell, but height is harder.
He didn't get into the spruces too much of that buck to really tell, because when you got a tall rock, and if there's snow on him, he'll knock a little snow off the branches coming out. So
Yeah, and also remember what you've been through and all the indicators that he's already laid out for you. Because I had one fool me before where going through the spruces like that, and I mean, he was brushing stuff off really wide, about that wide. And I kept following him. Then he got into, you know, a bunch of little pecker poles and he went right through them. So I turned to my father, I'm like, what the hell, this deer doesn't have any rack. Anyway, he just bowled right through there sometimes. But if I would have seen that and I, you know, trying to get it through my head, I kept going back. I'm like, he brushed that stuff back there. He's got something. But sometimes they can just fold stuff over as well. Got to keep that in mind.
So let's pretend that you shot a deer today, and you're an old fella, even a young fella. Let's pretend you're a young fella and you're back in there 5 miles, kill a pretty good buck, and you're gonna go back the next day and drag your deer out. How do you prepare that for next day? I'm gonna tell you, I take care of that, because you're looking at an old hand and doing that. I've left a lot of deer in the woods overnight, never had bothered with anything bothering. What you do, you drag it a little ways, but if there's spruces there, drag it into the spruces. Don't gut it out yet. Don't gut the deer. Get into the spruces, then you gut your deer out, and I'll tell you why. The ravens won't fly into those spruces. If you got him out in the hardwoods, if you shot him out there, you got him there and you're gonna leave him overnight, the ravens are gonna tell everything in the woods there's something over there to eat. Every coyote, every bear, foxes, they all know there's something over there. That's why you got him out in the spruces. Then you cover him up with everything you can find. You're gonna leave him overnight. The only thing you don't protect from is a bear. A bear don't care about your scent, he don't give a shit. What he's gonna care about when he shows up is where you got the deer out. See, that's why you got to gut it out near the deer. First thing he's gonna go after, he ain't gonna go after the deer that you got all covered up. The reason you cover it up is so he don't get after it right off. Throw logs or whatever you can find. Have it that deep over top of the deer. But the gut pile's over here open, so the bear eats the gut pile. Wonderful. Well, guess what happens to him halfway through the night? Now he's spraying all over the woods with his rear end because he's got an upset tummy. He's not interested in the deer right off either. So you're all set for at least one night for a bear. But the coyotes won't bother that thing for 2, 3, 4 days. Guarantee it. You can go back, get your buddies, drag it out the next day, and you should be fine if you do it right. If you want, throw a coat over it, pee on it, whatever. By the time you get done disturbing everything, you're all set. I'm an old hand going back, getting help to drag the deer out. My back hurts, I'm 60 or 65, and we don't want you having a heart attack. You know how it goes. A little rubbing of the eyes, and all the young guys, don't drag it, we'll help you. So, and he's one of them. This guy here drove almost, 27 hours?
32.
32 hours. He drove 32 hours,
Straight.
He gets there, Shane gives him some spaghetti, and said, you want to drag a deer out? And of course, he's all excited, young guy. Yeah, I'll go drag it. He drags this deer out uphill on bare ground, and it weighed 275.
Dressed.
He dragged it out himself after driving all them hours.
Yeah.
And I was there, I saw the whole thing. I was sleeping in the Suburban. And I saw him come up over the bank with it.
That's the biggest buck I've ever got to see in person. That was a huge deer. 275 dress, big. And I'm glad I didn't know that when I was dragging it, because I don't think I would have done it.
I don't know how he did it. Did you ever try dragging a 270-pound buck on bare ground?
And I remember, I was young too, I was in my 20s, and I remember when I was doing it, like, whew, I felt, you know what I mean? I could feel like, this hurts. And I was like, man, dude, just suck it up, quit being a baby. And then we weighed, and I was like, okay, that makes sense.
I shot a couple of them that weighed 270s, actually 3 of them. And one I tried dragging it on bare ground, the rope broke, and I went flying this way, everything come out of my pockets, lost my glasses, and had a lawn sale right there. That's when I dragged it over there and hid it behind a bunch of brush, coming back tomorrow with some help.
So, Lanny, we've got a question here that was in the box. Describe what you consider the best habitat for big bucks.
Wow, it depends on what part of the country you're from.
Maine. Go to Maine.
Maine.
I think an old guy told me one time, and I seem to notice this, and I told him this year. Cedar. If they can winter where there's a bunch of cedar, they seem to always have bigger racks. So that's what I've noticed through the years. And he was hunting where there was a lot of cedar, and he was covering a lot of country, and he was jumping out a few bucks, and they all had pretty good racks on them, most of them.
Yep.
They all had some of this. And I've shot a lot of deer where there's cedar, and they always have big racks, or nice racks. So I would say for growing racks, if they winter, they got to winter good to have a good rack. If they come out malnutrition, they don't have very good racks. So that's why I'm talking about wintering. You have to winter good. And I think cedar is good for them. They eat other things besides just cedar, but a lot of browse. Porcupines help some too in some areas. They snip off the, trying to remember the name of the trees, the softwood tree. It's hemlock, thank you. They crawl up there and they snip off the branches for some reason, and they fall on the ground. You always find a lot of deer around those. They seem to like that too. So
In Maine too, one of the main foods for deer up there is going to be the old man's beard. I'm sure you've heard Lanny talk about it, but
yeah, the old man.
That's going to be on all your spruce trees and stuff. So when your spruce trees get knocked over in the wind or whatever, that hits the ground, and that's going to...
Deer like a variety of food anyways.
They do.
You know, people that feed deer, you see these big feeding things. If you watch a deer afterwards, he eats some of that, but he goes back in the woods and he's trying to find more. He wants a variety of food. If you watch them walk around like when I was a kid, they munch a little over here, then they'll go there and pick something else, munch on that, then they go munch on something up there. So they're a food variety thing. It's like going in the Chinese place.
Yeah, the buffet.
So the thing I'd add to that is open hardwoods. It's great to look. It's great to see. It's got a really nice view, but it's not good for deer. I always compared it to if you're hunting farmland, hardwoods equate to basically hunting in a field. It's way too open for a deer to go out there. And usually when they do go through there, it's, at night. You'll see rubs and stuff like that, but I try and stay away from open hardwood stuff. Stay on the edges of the green growth, and then, down by trickles and stuff.
If you're scouting, if this hardwood goes all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom, I wouldn't go hunt there. Yeah, there's probably a couple deer there, but I wouldn't hunt there. You gotta have the bottom's gotta have a swamp or something, and then the softwood trees mixed in with the hardwood trees up on top. That's your best places to find a big buck.
And you'll see some mountains in Maine where it's no hardwood on the top, just green growth. Those are no good either. Those are real tight when you climb up there and you get in those. They're real thick, just spruce and fir, no food for them, none of that.
They pass through there.
They pass through it. I followed bucks through it, and they actually don't even like to even go through it. It's so gross and thick, and they'll find their way through it to get to the other side, but they just soon stay right out of that. There's no deer up there, but it's the mix. There's certain mountains, like he's saying, it's good to have that cedar down low, but if you can get a mountain that has the mixture of the, fir and spruce with hardwood, that's most of the time there's deer on that.
Yeah, and if you're not finding a track by the road, those big mountains with the sporadic stuff on the top and cedar down low, you can get in that hardwood stretch along the side and just follow it for, however long that ridge is. If it's 5 miles along there, you can follow it, seeing if you can find anything going up or down. I like the ones going up. I don't like the ones going down because, like Timmy was saying earlier, those are usually the ones that are further ahead of you at the end of the day. I'd rather see them going up.
Yeah, so coming off the mountain, that's usually a rested buck. So that's always been a little bit sketchy to take tracks that are a fresh track coming off a mountain. You're much better off having a fresh track going up a mountain.
I've had more luck. See, you're slabbing the mountain that's going up. I've had more luck with that than falling them off in there. If they're going up, I like that. A lot of times I go up there and feed a little bit, and they lay down a bunch up there. So it can be 2 days old, 3 days old. You still might be up there. I've shot them where they're 3 days old and found them up on top, putting around up there. So
and get up high. A lot of people get 2/3 of the way. Get up high. Those bucks are up in. They like the elevation. I look at the elevation. If you're, if you hunt, I'm sure a lot of us live in, areas that would pressure deer and all that stuff. The top of a mountain is like a thick swamp or a thicket for a buck. You know what I mean? That's the place where nobody sort of goes. Just like the nasty swamp. Nobody goes out into that island that's in the swamp, and that's why he's there. The top of a mountain can be the same thing because it's crazy, but a lot of people just, I don't know. I think they just talk themselves out of it or whatever.
You
It's
young
tough.
guys should
It's
go
tough
to the
getting
top.
up there. That's the thing. But spend 2-3 hours getting up there, and then you've got the whole patch of woods, the whole mountaintop all to yourself.
Yeah.
Guys, got any questions?
If there's snow 1 week,
If there's
Question is, if there's snow, what week? If there's snow, any week.
I'm going
Yeah.
any week. But if I were to pick, it would be either Thanksgiving week or the week after, if there was snow, because they're still moving a little bit. If there's snow first week, it's pretty tough to find a track. You've got to either depend on one that's traveling, or you've got to put a lot of miles on your feet and try and locate one. So
I'm gonna
they're
give you guys
a little more difficult to locate.
I'm going to give you guys a little tip on when the rut's going on and when it kind of stops. You guys want to know that? So you're riding around, second week in Maine, up northern part of Maine. You look down, here's a deer track running down the road, right in the middle of the road. You know what that is? That's a buck chasing a doe around. He lost her and he's running down the road looking for her. Pretty soon you drive a ways and there's another one going across the road or going this way on the road. That means the rut is starting to go on. When you stop seeing that, the rut is over. Like, believe it or not, the rut is over Thanksgiving week pretty much, and everybody thinks it's still going. And you talk to people, oh, the rut's still going. I tell you what's going on. All the young bucks are chasing the does around. The rut is still over. But so now you're starting to not see buck tracks across the road so much. So the problem is, the week after the season's over, the main season, riding around is not so productive. You're not going to see them big buck tracks crossing the road very much. You might see one or two the first part, then it dries right up. So now you got to go in the woods looking for them. So just keep that in mind. If you don't find one driving around, stop, because they're not moving anymore. Post rut has started. He's feeding here and he's laying down over there. Prime example, there was a big buck on Sandy Stream a few years ago, and I ignored that big buck track for a while, but I never saw it again. And I said to Shane, that big buck crossed the road right down there, and he's never crossed since. I haven't seen him around. I hit every road within 10 miles. Never saw that big buck track again. And that track was probably 5 days old, hadn't snowed. I'm gonna follow that thing, see where he went, because I've drove all around this place. He's in here someplace. He wasn't a half a mile off the road, and he found a cedar tree to feed on. And he'd been there for days. He didn't go nowhere. Laid down over there, laid down over there, and he laid down over there. The rut was over, and he just stayed right there. So I called Shane on the phone. I found him. So Shane went up on another road. I said, I'm going to jump him out. He's right here somewhere in this thicket. He crawled up, this buck crawled up on a little spruce knob about the size of this thing, laid down, had about as high as this right here, laid down up there. How am I going to sneak up on him? I knew he was right there. So I moved Shane. I said, you better move over. I'm going to push him off this knob. He should have stayed there because he went on the road where I had him stand in the first place. But that deer, that's what I'm saying. They don't move after the rut's over. They stay in one spot pretty much. The young ones are still chasing them around a little bit. But that's all it is. Sorry about my voice. I've been talking so much the last couple of days.
But in Maine, they still go home, let's say, after the rut, they still go home.
What's this? Do I go home after the rut?
No. A mature buck, even though he's out of his area, he's still going to go home. He's not just going to stay where he is after the rut. He's going to travel back home to where he is, where he was raised.
Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them just stay where the food is.
Yeah, I think it's more food than
Yeah.
I got to be home. He's born somewhere, and maybe that's home, but it's food. They're just trying to. They've run so hard. By the time the rut's over, they have to.
So you think he might just stay right there for the winter?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like a deer yard.
yeah,
A
if
deer
there's
yard
comfort-
isn't deer's home for their life. It's just a home for after the rut and then winter, right?
Just food.
It's food.
Food
It's
and
just
cover.
straight food. He's just trying to survive. He's trying to get enough calories and enough weight back on to survive what's coming being the winter.
I'll tell you what, this size of this tent right here, I've seen them winter, most of the winter, right in this tent right here, because there's food here.
Yeah.
They don't go nowhere. Lay down here, lay down over there. Not all of them do that, but some of them do.
But what I have noticed is those bucks will use those areas sometimes year after year. You know what I mean? Like after the rut's over, he goes back to that area to winter. You know?
So if you're watching a buck, say all through November in a certain area, if somebody got a picture of him after rut, 5 miles, he might not return to where he was in October.
Yeah. No.
Well, here's what happens in October. There's 2 bucks in the field, and you see them every night pretty much. They're all the time. Rut starts. They could be 20 miles down the road.
Yeah.
They're no longer buddies.
Yeah, and they're no longer buddies either. They hate each other. Told you to stay out of my bar.
And I think it gets a little different when you get into the big woods, because what you're talking is like, I feel like it's a question for like tighter hunt. You know, in the big woods, everything is so spread out. Like that almost doesn't apply. You know what I mean? They literally can just sort of be anywhere. Yeah, it's some of there's not a lot of rhyme or reason. It's just so spread out. You know, so it's like the next doe group is 3 miles over there, but his wintering yard might be 8 miles that way, and home might be 4 miles back this way. You know what I mean? It's too open. It's too big.
I've tracked them after the rut is pretty much over, but they're still hunting for does, and I've gone an all-day venture with them, and they just straight line it. They know where every doe, every pack of does. Say there's 5 does hanging out over there. They go over there and check that out, then they're after the next bunch, the next bunch. They don't stop for miles and miles. I've tracked them I tracked one time from 3 slides on Partland Pond Road with my vehicle, back when there was roads everywhere. Tracked him all over where the spring was. He went up on that mountain range, then he headed towards the forks. Never caught up with him. I got back that night at 7 o'clock. Never caught up with that deer. He was a big buck. He was just on a mission. Hey, you young guys remember when you went to about 40 miles down the road, right? Then you went to the other one 20 miles the other way. You guys remember, he's shaking his head, see?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys do anything with no snow, or you just say you don't bother going during the season, like there's no snow?
Oh, I'm gonna go roam in the countryside. If I know there's a big buck in there and there's no snow, I'm going in there looking for him.
I'm guilty of. Sorry, go ahead.
And I'm gonna look for them little trails that they take. They all take these little pinch points. Say you come across a mountain, they kind of funnel into some areas, you hunt those. You
Hey.
stay on those trails a little bit off to the one side.
And you track them around enough, they'll show you a bunch of those kind of places he's talking about, these little pinch points and stuff, which is good. So you hunt in the area for a while and track enough bucks around in there, you'll have really quality spots to hunt on bare ground. I'm a little bit different. I had a family. I got 2 kids now, so my time's a lot more limited. So now I actually don't even hunt bare ground. Last year was the first year I hunted on bare ground in Maine in probably over 10 years. And so I just go when the snow is there, you know, so
I usually ride around and find new places that I can get into, trying to scout out for when there is snow. So I'll go to a brand new area and then I'll take a big long hike, do a loop. I know that I'm probably not going to shoot anything, but I'm going to be looking for, you know, the big rubs, signpost rubs that everyone wants to see. And if those are scarred up recently, that's when I'll go back in there when there is snow. But I use those dry days more as just pure scouting instead of still hunting like I used to.
Okay, you want to talk about a little trickery? See a lot of heads going up and down, yeah. So, crunchy snow. I let off 2 guys, put them on 2 buck tracks, crunchy snow. And I said to Shane, well, it's my turn now. Let's find me a buck track. So I found a buck track. Weren't a real big one, but it's muzzleloader season. Weren't too picky. So I followed this buck, and he found a doe, and he started following his doe around. Started chasing her around a little bit. Now we went into a pine grove, you know, where the pines are about this tall. And he went in there with her. He's really noisy. And I'm thinking he's up there about from here to the woods over there. I could hear something up there. I wasn't sure. And I said, I can't just walk up there in this pine grove because he's going to hear me coming, see me. So there was a rock right over here. So I went and sat on the rock. I said, I think he lost that doe. If he did, he's going to come down here thinking I might be the doe here. So I sat there for about 5 minutes. I looked up underneath I could hear something. I looked underneath the pines. I could see 2 feet coming. And I saw the antlers sticking out. A little trickery was right there. He come looking for a doe, but there weren't one. So I called that on the video powder burn time because I shot him from here to there. Come around the pine tree and I was already aiming like this. Oh God. I watched him go just like this. I should laugh about that, but I couldn't help it. He come around the tree and he went like that and looked at me and I was right here. Burnt some of the hair off the side of his shoulder. And you know what? I tried to twirl the gun again and it didn't work. I gotta learn how to do that. Sorry, you guys. But see, that was a little trickery, knowing what I've tracked enough deer, so I pretty much know what you're thinking most of the times. So that helps. I shot a few deer that way. And if say you forget your antlers, and Shane's got it on one of the videos where he just took a big branch and did this on the tree and made a bunch of noise, and they sat down and a big buck come walking out, going like this, looking for somebody to fight with. He found a 270. I want to talk to you about grain. I was on this panel one time in Pennsylvania, and I was at the end of the line on the grain thing. They were coming this way, they're asking all these deer owners what kind of grain they fed their deer, because they had these big fenced-in areas that they hunted. Plus, they just fed them grain on the side. Some of you guys probably heard about this before. You probably heard, you're out there laughing already. So this guy got this brand of grain. Next guy, he feeds this grain. They got to me, asked me what I fed them. I said 150. Sometimes I give them a double dose of 150 grain hot sixes. That's the grain I feed them. So anyways, want to hear about the bridge? I know some of you guys have heard about the bridge. So years ago, I had this Wagoneer. I'm driving down the road, way down there, a couple hundred yards, the guy's doing this. I got 2 bridge stories for you guys. So I get there, and the guy says, you can't go across the bridge. The bridge is all rotted out. So I got out and look at it. I said to my dad and my brother and the guy riding with us, I said, you want to ride with me or what? Well, you can't go across the bridge. I said, I'm going across the bridge. You can either ride or watch. I'm going across the bridge. My dad's yelling at me, you can't go across. I said, just wait a minute. I went down the road a couple hundred yards and I come up through. I never touched the bridge. Had a little jump to it. Boom, I played the Dukes of Hazzard. Bam. So on the way back, I said to him, you guys want to ride or you want to watch? No, that looked like it was kind of fun. We'll ride. So, of course, when I come up the road, the guy with the truck, he went through the bridge. He's over there skipping. No, get out of the way before I run you over. So, what was the other bridge story? I don't know either. I forgot it. See, I had a stroke there last year, so my memory loss is pretty good.
He gets himself in a lot of nice areas though by doing. If you guys ever rode with him during the deer season, it's funny. He's like a kid, you know, and he's still four wheels and gets him places that nobody else is getting to. But it leads him to places that age class of bucks are, you know, you just got a great big cranker out there that nobody knows about, and he's the only one brave enough to get back in there. But
yeah,
he does.
I get in there a long ways. I got the other bridge story back in memory. So it was a day just like this one right here, you guys. Guy from New Hampshire riding around with me. Can't remember his name right now, but it's pretty boring that day. If you ever hunted in Maine here, deer don't move on a nice sunny day like today. And we're coming back, and it's the Forks. You guys are familiar with the Forks? Well, at the Forks, there's a big dam just above there. The main road is like this, and the store is here, and you go up there, there's a big dam right there. And there's a bridge. And the bridge is just wide enough for a vehicle to go through. You probably got this much room on each side of your Suburban. So I pull out and I look way down and I see that bridge down there a couple hundred yards. And he's telling me how he was pretty bored all day because the sun's out and hadn't seen nothing. I said, you're bored? He said, yeah. I said, I can fix that. So I floored it. We're headed towards that bridge, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at the bridge, looking at me, and pretty soon I hear, oh, we went through the bridge. Didn't touch nothing. Is you still bored? No, you asshole. I got to board him out of him. But you got to have fun when you do that. He's seen something.
Oh, yeah.
He's rode with me a lot. We have a lot of fun, and we should have filmed him pulling on the cable truck.
Yeah, I pulled a Suburban up the hill. At least I want to tell myself that, but I think he finally did get traction.
Up there, he got the cable and he walking along. It looked like he pulling the Suburban up the cable. Then we get all the way to the top. I said, nah, we're done with that. We're going back. Well, yeah, we do a lot of funny four-wheeling. I was supposed to follow him one day, and I didn't do it. But he made it through, so. He forgave me for not following him. Yeah, the swamp trail.
Yeah, a lot of the times, a lot of folks just don't know what your vehicle can do. And speaking from experience, Lanny knows the edge of what your vehicle can do. And he's pushed it over the edge multiple times when I'm in the vehicle, which have, you know, I think I've got a permanent knuckle mark in the oh shit handle there in front, but yeah.
We crossed well, I didn't know what it was. Him and I scouting. We're going down on this trail, and it's got a blue marker on it, on the trees. I said to him, what's that blue marker on the trees? Oh, this is a hiking trail. We're on a hiking trail with some murder. I might as well just keep going. Some of the four-wheelers have been here, I can go. So we get to this river. We look across the river and it went like this and over. I said, boy, that looks awful steep. I'm worried about the back of the Suburban getting hung up in the curve. So we had to take everything off the dash because it was going to the back. That's how steep it was. So we went up over there, made it somehow. About a week later, I decided to go back through it just because it had a little bit of snow, and I wanted to see if there was some buck tracks in there that were worth looking at. So this is how steep it was. So I went down like this, and I looked at my oil gauge, because after a while, all the oil goes to the front of the oil pan. I looked at him, I said, well, we still got oil pressure. So I got to go through there with a camera guy. Back to
Yeah, I mean, so many times I've thought there's absolutely no way in hell that we're getting through here. Absolutely no way.
And
sure enough, he's got some cojones, I'll tell you that people just don't. Well, number one, you do. But number one, that that's a huge factor. But number two, he doesn't care if he scratches or dents or anything to the vehicle. So that's another, you gotta have a rig that you're willing to beat up.
Yeah, you got to have something, it's okay.
Yeah.
Do you
Making
chain up,
roads.
Lanny?
I hang around these guys a little bit up there, man.
Do
So
you use chains?
they're the same way. So, what's this?
Use chains? You chain up in the snow?
Chain? No, I don't use no chain. No.
Just run it?
Yeah. Well, what happened was, one of the places he got a little nervous. There's a bank here, the road goes like this a little bit, and there's a big drop off here. Now there's a ditch here, right? A water bar that's cleaned out a little bit, and the snow's slippery, so you're going like this. Now what happens if the Suburban slides in the water bar and you go like this down over the bank? That gets kind of hairy coming through there, doesn't it, fellas? Well, this is where four-wheeling, that you've done enough of it, you know what to do in that case. What you do is you get out and you take your winch and hook it to a tree over there, and you slowly do this, going through that water bar so the front end can't go down over the bank. So it just kind of keeps you up there. That's how you get through there and be safe. He was really worried about that. I said, don't worry, it's going to be good.
Yeah, that did worry me.
So hooked it to a tree, and then he figured out it's okay. We have an adventure today. The worst adventure I ever did with my Suburban, all the planks were gone, and there was 2 trees here and 1 over there. And I went across that, and I showed him where it used to be. And I had a biologist from the state of Maine with me. Last time I saw him, he went across the 2 planks. He stood over there when I started to go across, because the tire tracks are perfect on those 2 planks over here in this one. Last time I see him, he's running around the corner that way, going like this, and I ain't watching this stupid shit. And I got across there, and he slowly come back peeking around the trees. You made it across there, he goes. What about if we gotta come back? I said, well, we may have to come back this way, who knows? We should get back to some serious stuff, shouldn't we? No? I remember one time I shot a deer, I didn't tag it because it was wounded. And these guys are in the way chasing this deer around because there was a big buck down over the hill I wanted to get after, and these guys kept chasing this buck around that they wounded. And I said to Shane, I said, I gotta help these guys out. They're not getting this deer, I'll take care of that. So I caught up with the deer and plucked him and drove off. And they come up near the deer, got shot in the head laying there. So I come back about an hour later. One guy was still cleaning up around there, and he goes, the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Somebody shot the deer, they didn't even tag it. I said, maybe they're trying to help you get it over with. Nothing I wanted. At least I got him out of there anyways. It's another adventure.
When they J-hook, or 90, is it always because they're going to feed and going to bed down, or they're trying to get rid of somebody behind it, track it?
You mean a pair of them?
No.
No.
No, the J hook,
Oh, the J-hook, yeah. And we should talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, most of the time that's him just setting himself up to be able to watch his track where he came in. So like if a coyote was following him, he just goes up and swings back down around, but he's going to be able to see his trail. So he's just setting himself up.
So it's not to feed, it's not to...
They zig and zag wherever for feeding. Sometimes it might look like a J hook, but it's just because there's a raspberry bush right there that he wants to feed on.
Yeah, usually it'll be down, like if he wants to bed up here, he'll go down here, do the J hook down here, and then circle back up.
Yeah.
Because the wind's blowing. He knows, okay, it's clear up there. Now I can go sit here and watch where I came back from there.